All right, let's get started. Hey everyone, welcome to another session of our small group demo series. Today we'll be talking about edge functions, but specifically edge functions in the Contentstack ecosystem and more so in the context of Contentstack launch. So this summer we rolled out some exciting new features for launch, specifically an update that allows launch developers more capabilities, especially when implementing headless applications. And it opens up a number of possibilities for Contentstack customers to really deliver awesome, new end user experiences for their customers. Before we dive in, some quick intros. I'm Austin Chen. I'm on the product marketing team here at Contentstack. I'm joined by Dean as well as Gabrielle. You both want to do a quick little intro?
Sure, I'm Dean Haddock. I'm the Senior Product Manager of Contentstack Launch. I've been with Contentstack for almost 3 years now, so thanks for joining us today.
Yeah, hello everyone. I'm Gabrielle Susan, one of the solutions engineers at Contentstack, so I'll be running through the demo today. And yeah, I've been at Contentstack for a little over 2 years now.
Awesome. Thanks, guys. So a quick look at the agenda for today. We'll start off with a little intro and background around Contentstack launch, just for more context setting there. And then we'll pass it over to Dean to speak about edge functions and what they are and kind of the benefits. And then we'll pass it over to Gabrielle afterwards for a live demonstration where she'll walk you guys through a use case. And then we'll wrap up with some resources, some takeaways for additional learning that if you guys want to check out afterwards, and then we'll leave some time for Q&A at the end as well. So yeah, real quick, what is Contentstack Launch? If you guys aren't familiar, it's our fully integrated front-end hosting solution. So hosting for enterprise class websites. So the great thing about Launch is that it's completely integrated with our CMS. So this really eliminates friction and siloing within your tech stack. And then it's also fully automated. So you're not only able to synchronize deployments, cache revalidation, as well as content publishing. And then last but not least, the freedom to choose and work with the front-end frameworks that you love and know, and you're able to kind of execute code in the cloud and also edge functions. All right, so before we dive into the edge functions piece, wanted to just kind of set the stage with some of the potential drawbacks or what life might look like without edge functions. So first off, limited personalization. So without edge functions, a lot of the requests from users have to travel through a central server or a cloud data center, which might be geographically distant from the end users. So kind of getting that all in one, it's not a really tailored experience for all of your users. Next, high server load. So without edge functions, the central server that's handling all these requests, it introduces a lot of scalability issues, especially during the peak traffic times. So this can also result in high server overloads, slower processing times, as well as potential downtime. And then last but not least, security ops limitations. So without edge functions, all that data is processed centrally again, which increases the risk of data breaches and also potentially makes it harder for data privacy regulations and compliance. So requiring data to be processed or stored in specific regions. All right, I will pass it over to you, Dean, to talk about edge functions.
Thanks for that intro, Austin. If you want to advance the slide there. Yeah, so what are edge functions? Essentially, edge functions are going to run at what is called the edge. The edge is really the furthest proximity of the infrastructure right before reaching your end user. So if you're on a browser, on a mobile device, and you encounter an edge function in the application that you're using, it's running very, very geographically close to where you are as an end user. Edge functions run lightweight JavaScript in the Contentstack launch universe. And these edge servers are distributed all around the planet. So anytime you're encountering an edge function through a launch application, you're hitting that edge function very, very close to where you are geographically, which gives us some very, very cool functionality. Do you want to go to the next slide, Austin? So really, what edge functions will allow you to do, so it's very low latency. So overall, you have very fast performance. So if you could imagine an instance where you are trying to detect, for example, the header of the traffic going over your application, and you want to route that traffic to a different API endpoint, or you want to show a different experience, whether you're on a mobile browser versus your desktop browser. Launch edge functions can do that for you without even so much as a flicker in the browser. So what this does is it gives you additional capabilities that you wouldn't normally get without edge functions, but also it allows you to scale and develop extremely performant applications, because at the edge layer, things are happening in essentially a very highly distributed model. Next slide, please. And so some common use cases, I mentioned personalization. So A/B testing, personalization are by far one of the coolest applications from my perspective of using edge functions. So imagining that you have, let's say you want to increase the conversions on a particular shopping cart page, and you want to A/B test the placement of a button or content or an image, you can use the edge functions to call that A/B in content, present those different variations to the end user, and have it be a completely seamless, completely transparent experience for that end user, so that user A is having one version of the content, user B is having one version of the content, but their experience is just as if it was a static site from the ground up. So no flicker, no additional hops to the server. API gateways are also a really good one. So you can use edge functions to, as I mentioned, like moderate traffic into different API endpoints. You can also accomplish like blue-green deployments if that's something you're interested in. And then Internet of Things devices is also a really interesting use case, because again, edge functions are geographically close to that end user. So you can do some very advanced computation in your application that stays very close to where that end user is. So you have extremely fast performance on that extremely low latency. But that's just kind of very high level view of what is ultimately a fairly abstract concept in the world of headless. So let's move over to Gabby and see what she has to show us for a demo today.
Great, thanks, Dean. And I'll go ahead and share my screen here, and we'll jump into our demo here. Awesome. So for our demo today, I'm just going to be going over one of the use cases that Dean has just mentioned. In this case, we'll be showing the device adaptation use case. We'll be showing it, writing an edge function to show a different experience of whether your users are on a web browser or on a mobile browser. We'll deploy that edge function using launch, and then we'll see that experience update. So what I'm showing right here, and this is just one of our Contentstack sample sites right here, right? This is without that edge function created. So you can see I just have this web experience. If I went ahead and let's switch my browser to be a mobile, and we'll have to kind of refresh it. This browser, we see that experience does not change whether I'm on a web or mobile browser here. So what we want to do is we want to create this edge function to create that experience. So let me go ahead and open up some code here in Visual Studio Code. And when writing edge functions with launch, right, they're all going to live within this functions folder. If I open up a functions folder that I've already created, right, we can see we have this JavaScript file, this edge.js JavaScript file. For the sake of this live demo, right, I have this edge function already pre-written, and I'll show how you can also access this exact code to test this out yourself, whether you're a current Contentstack user, open up a trial, or want to do this in the future. But we can see here, right, within this edge function, this is doing that different device adaptation. So within our edge function, we have our simple function handler taking in just our simple request object. This is just standard fetch API request object. And then we're doing our JavaScript logic. We're just checking here, right? If the user is on a mobile device, right? Android, iPhone, iPad, any of those different devices, right? There we're going to show them our different mobile host. Otherwise, we're going to show them that web host. And what's really nice about this, as Dean mentioned, right? This is all happening at the edge, so closest to that user's geographical location. So you will not see any flicker. This will happen. This experience will be very seamless for our users. So now that we have this simple edge function, let's go ahead and redeploy that code. I have this in a separate branch than that other website right here we were just looking at. So I'm going to go ahead and open up our Contentstack launch here on this other tab. If you are not familiar, right, this is our launch. This is Contentstack's optional front-end hosting, completely integrated with the Contentstack CMS. Each project is tied to a different Git repo. And if I open up this project here, which is tied to that site we were just looking at, we can see I already have this one environment running on that URL we were just looking at. So for this demo, I'm just going to create a new environment that is actually going to deploy a different branch that has that edge function that I have already kind of previously pushed to that new branch. So we can go ahead, we'll give this an environment name. Maybe we'll just call this our device adaptation. And then I'll go ahead and select the appropriate Git branch. So I'm going to go ahead and collect my feature edge function right here. This is a Next.js application. So we can see it auto-detected that framework, my build commands. And now here's where I am just going to connect this very seamlessly with Contentstack, as all of this content, right, within the site is also coming from Contentstack. So I'm going to select that delivery token and just import all of those appropriate variables from my Contentstack stack right here. And we'll go ahead and hit create. Awesome. So now if we can go ahead and we'll click into our environment as it's deploying right here. And what we're going to see, right, this is just going to build. It's going to build and deploy our code as well as that new edge function, and it will deploy our edge function to those multiple points of presence. And that way the user, wherever they are, they will have that experience closest to them, as this is closest to the user before it even hits the server here. And while this is building here, a couple things to point out too. One, we'll see after this is deployed, if you needed to debug your edge functions, right, you'll be able to also see that within the server logs, any console logs, outputs, anything you write in your edge function, you can all debug into this server log function here as well. And this will just take about a minute or two. And then once this is deployed, we'll go ahead and take a look at that site, and we'll see that experience change depending on the device of the user. I'll take a look at, go ahead, Dean.
Yeah, while that's deploying, it's probably a good time to call out that because edge functions do run in this extremely low latency environment, very far away from the origin geographically, and just the general nature of edge functions is they do have some limitations to be aware of. So one area to check in for that is wintercg.org, which is the web standards that we are following for edge functions deployment on launch. So just be aware that you're not going to want to put a tremendous amount of code or anything that may risk compromising the latency of your site when you're deploying edge functions.
Yep. Thanks, Dean. If there's anything else you want to talk about in our next minute or two while this is deploying, feel free. But yeah, this should be live any minute now. Yeah, nice, Dean. Oh, go ahead.
Yeah, well, I would just add that we have our Personalize product, that will be hitting the shelves very, very soon this year, and it plays extremely nicely with launch. So if you're thinking about personalization and you're kicking the tires on, Contentstack's personalized product, just know that between our CMS, personalize, and launch, they're really made to plug and play very, very nicely together. And Gabrielle, I see your site is live, so why don't you kick it back off?
Perfect. Thanks, Dean. Yep. So we can see this finished building, our edge function, as well as this new branch is deployed. We can go ahead and access this new domain right here. And we'll see that we have this different experience, right? This is showing we're currently on that web version right here. If we go ahead and we will just change this to a mobile device, and let me just refresh, we'll see kind of on this refresh that full kind of flicker-free experience. This changing to, it says mobile version. We see the colors change. Maybe you want to update the layout, anything like that for a mobile versus web, right? This is what this edge function is doing, having that different experience. We can see if we toggle back to web and refresh, this understands I'm on a web version, right? We get that new web experience right here. So, right, obviously, this is just one simple use case of edge functions. As Dean mentioned, this will be really, really powerful with our new Personalize product coming out with personalization and A/B testing closest to that user's experience, so they don't see their page load and then reload with a different experience. They have a very seamless experience. Rewrites, redirects, blue-green deployments, a lot of really cool use cases to give your users that best experience with edge functions, using that seamlessly within the Contentstack CMS, and then hosting that all with that interoperability with launch together.
Yeah, and Gabby, another thing here, just to get a little bit more under the hood, what that edge function is doing is looking at the device header that's being sent over, and it's intercepting that and performing some logic to show the different front end based on that. So that's the power of the edge function, as opposed to, for example, that request from the user going all the way to the server to get a variation and then sending it back. This logic is happening really, really close to an end user. That's what prevents that flicker. So if you were to try to implement this without edge functions, you would just have a bit of a hiccup there right before the variation was sent back to the user.
Yep, thanks, Dean.
Yeah.
And yeah, a couple other things just to point out, just opening up, right, our launch documentation. So this is all of our publicly available docs. You can see we have a whole documentation on edge functions, how to write them, how to access the certain environment variables within launch, debugging it. And then you'll also see these code examples. This is the one that we just saw in this demo today. You can look at this publicly available GitHub repo of that edge function we looked at, as well as some other examples in here as well. And then we also do have our Contentstack Academy with a number of different courses. In this case, I just have pulled up our Launch Foundations course. This is also helpful with just kind of that overall of deploying a project, using Launch, what it's good for, setting up different cloud functions, and then also looking at, right, our publicly available documentation on edge functions specifically. Awesome. That is what I have for the demo today. Dean, anything else you want to add here?
Well, yeah, I think the main thing is just if you're already a Contentstack user or launch user, just know that this is ready to go and you can use it today. It's available for all Contentstack customers. So feel free to give it a try. And then Austin, I think over to you. Great demo, Gabby.
Thank you.
Yeah, great work. Thanks, Gabrielle. Thanks, Dean. I will share my screen again. Give me a sec here. Thank you. Yeah, so Some additional resources I referenced earlier in the call, but the documentation piece, there's a link there, like a drop in the chat that Gabby just walked us through. So if you wanted to take some additional time to review what that might look like, feel free to. We also have a recent blog as part of our Contentstack Pulse blog series talking about edge functions for Contentstack launch. That one was written by our very own Dean, so go check it out. There's a lot more good nuggets of best practices and use cases in there as well. And then the product detail page for launch is there as well if you guys want to learn more about what Contentstack launch is and how it could help you guys in some of your businesses and goals. But I think that's it for that. Wanted to leave some time for any Q&A. If you have any questions, feel free to drop them in the chat.
I did, so we have one question from Justin already. So the question is, if not using launch, would there be benefits to using edge functions versus something like Azure Functions or Remix? So Azure Functions would be more in the backend side of your code, like Cloud Functions or serverless functions. Edge functions are going to be really close to that front end. So if you're thinking of like a Cloud Function or a serverless function, it's more like a Lambda function. So the call is being made all the way back to the server, the origin, if you want to call it, or calling a Lambda function or something like that, and then sending the data back to your application. In edge functions, it's all happening right there at the CDN layer. So if you're not using edge functions, it would be I don't want to say categorically different experience, but definitely could be, depending on your implementation and architecture, could be a slightly degraded performance. We're still talking about headless. We're still talking about Jamstack. So ultimately, you're still in a very, very high performance space if you're using Cloud Functions or something like that. But certainly for the use cases we're discussing, you'll have a much, much improved, almost unnoticeable experience, unnoticeable in terms of performance experience if you're using edge functions. George, so great to hear from you, friend. It's included with launch. So on its own, there's no additional fee or add-on cost or anything like that. You just get it right out of the box with launch. Great question, thank you. Just check the chat, make sure we don't have any other questions. So Austin, for next steps, would we recommend folks that are new to Contentstack sign up for a trial and give it a spin?
Yeah, absolutely. Like it's a great way to get in the platform and learn, through a hands-on experience. Highly recommended.
Awesome. And the launch team is here to help you answer any questions as you get started. We have great documentation, as Austin showed, and we're excited to hear what you think.
All right. Thank you guys for joining. We'll be sure to share the recording once it's ready. But yeah, thank you guys again for joining today, and we'll catch you at the next one. Take care.
Thanks, everyone.
Thanks all.